game now. Me and you, we ain't the same now. Lions coming out to play now. Opposition out the way now. Out of the way. You wasn't invited. Say you come to play. I dare you to try it. You don't wanna try me. Don't step up to my team. Yeah, out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way. Game now, me and you, we ain't the same now. Lions coming out to play now. Opposition out the way now. Out of the way. You wasn't invited. Say you come to play. I dare you to try it. You don't wanna try me. Don't step up to my team. Yeah, out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way. Yeah, yeah. Out of the way.
60 Plus Racing Adventures is the long-running iRacing league for drivers 60 years of age or older, and right now it's their season finale from Interlagos, Brazil. Many seasons this championship has been going on, and this one comes to a close here. Here on RaceSpotTV, David Haynes with Justin Prince and producer Iku Metakala. We look forward to bringing you coverage of both races from this famous Brazilian circuit. Justin, welcome.
Thank you very much, David. It should be an interesting one to say the very least. Obviously, a lot of the minds of drivers entering today. But when it comes to this circuit, to first touch upon that, you're talking about a racetrack that brings out a lot of the technical, but has a lot of sections where if you have the speed, if you have the grip, you can make it side by side and be able to make overtakes. You have to be solid, though, if you want to win here in Brazil.
12 rounds to this season, and this is where we find ourselves. It all kicked off at Hockenheim on the Grand Prix circuit December 13. Since then, they've been racing weekly. We saw them at the Indianapolis Road Course a couple of weeks ago. Since then, they've been to Mugello, Imola, Sebring, Zandvoort, and Alton Park International. But this is the season finale, February 28th at Interlagos. Over on the point standings, of course, it's all about the points. At the final round of the championship, Greg Seitz has been the form driver of the season, racking up the most wins, racking up the most points, and even with drop rounds included, he has a handy lead over previous season champion Ragnar Wisloff there. Russ Addy and John Morgan follow. John Morgan tracking to be the Super 70s champion, the best placed driver over the age of 70. He's always so consistent and hunting around the podium. Just behind him, Gerhardus Joris and John Payne, Barry Hills, Mike Grandy, Mike McCormick, and Peter Hellstrom as our top 10 heading into the season finale. So on the grid, for the first of two races tonight, Greg Seitz. He's the championship leader. He's the man to beat, almost an insurmountable lead at this stage. And it's first and second on the grid, as it's first and second in the championship. Greg Seitz from Ragnar Wisloff. Then behind them, the order changes somewhat with Gerhardus Jorison, Greg Garris, John Payne, and Russ Addy, the top six for the rolling start in this F3 car. Barry Hills, John Morgan, Bruce Poole, Peter Hellstrom, Randy Shoemake, and Pierre Benetze are the top 12. The grid for this finale goes deeper with Jack Turner, Bill Smith, and Franz Josef Stum, Mike Grandy, JC Hay, and Richard Coulomb, Frank Butler, Craig Vaught, Douglas Beasley, Bobby Love, Earl Setzer, and Jerry Kerr. And now towards drivers who didn't set a qualifying time within the session: Bob Kern, Eugene Clark, David Bradley, Leif Hellberg, Mike McCormick, Franz Brink, and Richard Varley. At this point, iRacing finds a tiebreaker for them to put them at the back of the grid. It's either times from practice or it's iRating or something. iRacing will find a way for everyone to be able to start the race. And right now, as the F3 cars are behind the pace car on this formation lap, Justin Prince, we will have an extra formation lap, and it will be in honor of league administrator Mark Lisson, who sadly passed within the last week. He was a very integral part of this league from very, very early on. Championship that's now well into its 20th season and immensely popular. So Mark Lisson will be missed.
Extremely missed, because when you think about it, it's a series where a lot of drivers, in terms of those getting experience and those getting older, yes, on the platform, it's the tough thing involving that respect in terms of when someone passes out of a series like this. There are many drivers, even in the young grouping, you can argue, David, that want to strive to be part of the series. And having league administrators that put in the dedication, such as Mark Lisson, you can throw into that mix. Some of the drivers today, like Ragnar Wisloff, running with his name in the runner on the rear wings today. And in turn, we race in his honor.
See if we can get a look at the rear wing there of Ragnar Wisloff. A little difficult to pick up with the glare, but yes, as you say, Justin, exactly right. Handful of drivers with thank you mark on the rear wing. There's Ragnar Wisloff for sure. And it's not the glamorous part of a racing league, the admin, keeping up the points, putting the schedule out, keeping track of everything, hosting and organising the sessions, which is never super easy. But, Markelson did a lot for the league, and everyone is incredibly thankful for that, and sad for his passing. It looks like we have everyone but Eugene Clark on circuit for this double formation lap, which will give us 30 Dallara F3 cars for the season finale. I say it every broadcast, Justin. More people turn 60 every day.
And that's kind of one thing, how time works. Every year, every day, people get older. But that being said, some of the best when it comes to this age grouping, when it comes to iRacing, to say at the very least. It takes a lot of skill. In fact, you can put a lot of the drivers in the series amongst some of the upper echelons of the best when it comes to this type of race car on the iRacing platform. Today, though, the battle is on in turn to see which driver can add themselves to that championship list. And we've seen how the season's played out over the years. We've seen a lot of drivers really build up their experience, and today we're about to see what these drivers have in store when it comes to this racetrack. Expect this to be a wild beginning once more for the final round of the season.
Greg Seitz, one of those drivers who's only very recently turned 60, and he has been an absolute sensation since joining the 60 plus racing adventures, and really made a lot of the other drivers have to lift their game. Ragnar Wisloff, one of them. He's there on the outside of Greg Seitz. As we come up the hill here towards the pit straight, pace car will pull in. It will be 18 laps for this race. All the drivers ready to go. Track moderately warm. Tyre wear apparently very low on the list of problems for these drivers around this circuit. Pace car is in. Green flag is in hand and waving at the start-finish line. The final round of 60 plus racing adventures for this season gets underway as they all head down towards turn 1 on cold tyres. The champion-elect Greg Seitz is going to lead them now through the opening chicane. Everyone tidy as we go through the back of the field. A little bit of 3 wide there for Bob Kern, and he's the first driver to go around. Everyone else appears to be through the first 3 corners safely.
Perfect start that these drivers need to have happen for the start of a race like this. A couple bit of puffs of smoke towards the back of the field. Outside of that, Greg Seitz doing exactly what we've seen him do throughout the past couple of seasons when it comes to 60 plus racing adventures. But in general, across the iRacing series, whenever we've seen an open wheel car run away, he's already up nearly a second in the first 2 sectors.
And with that super long uphill pit straight, that's where the slipstreaming can be strong in a car like this. It's all corners through the middle of the lap here, and you see them navigating that. Greg Seitz, 1.3 second lead. Ragnar Wisloff in second place, not getting away from Gerhardus Jorison or John Payne. One thing you may notice as you look through the field is a couple of repeat liveries, because there's both the outright championship, the Super 70s championship, but also teams championship that a lot of the drivers put some stock into. It's a very social league for a lot of the drivers, so the teams championship, a great opportunity to work closely with someone and encourage your teammates. Barry Hills has clearly got some problems as he drops down the timing totem towards the end of the opening lap here, but there are no dramas for Greg Seitz. I think that's Barry Hills off the circuit there, maybe struggling with traction out of the left-hander at Junsao to head back up the hill on these cold tyres at the end of the opening lap.
Yeah, that did not look like the greatest
Oh, and now Ragnar
no!
Wisloff will out of the chicane. He's going to drop out a second, take the nose off the front of the car, and Ragnar Wisloff, second in the championship, is up against the Armco at the outside of Curva do Sol.
That is a disastrous sequence. You talk about losing grip. That is one of the spots where you can lose a lot of it in Senna S. If you go too quickly through that section, if you go off the racing line, if you hit the marbles, slide away. And in this case, Wisloff's chances slide away to contend.
I think the suspension is also damaged, not just the nose missing there based on the impact with the Armco. Gahadis moves into second. John Payne going along into third there. They're breaking away somewhat from Greg Garrison fourth, who's now leading another little group. And I feel as we settle into this race, definitely will be a little more pack racy than some others, just based on the power of these cars, how quickly you kick into that slipstreaming zone out of this section here, all the way around, uphill, through a couple of these left-hand kinks, and then back around to that turn one. Super quick lap around this modern version of Interlagos. Used to be a much longer lap in history, though.
Yeah, but these days, there's so much to consider here. 18 laps up on the board, but there is something to think about. There were 4 races coming into the season that they indicated, the race admins did, that drivers would need to pit. This was the 4th and final one. Road Atlanta, Mugello, Sebring, amongst the others on that list. So you were talking about that pit entry. That's going to be very important to time it up right, especially if you're, say, in a battle like this one on screen, to figure out, okay, can I find a hole in space to be able to try and get a little bit of time on an undercut, or better yet, what's the best time to come in for a pit stop?
JC Hayes wheel-to-wheel with Canadian Richard Coulomb, and down at turn 4 there's going to be just a little bit of contact. They were so clean side by side through turns 1, 2 and 3, and I think JC Hay is the driver checked up there, but the driver spun around is Richard Coulomb, and he also drops a lot of positions. Not seeing as much suspension damage, and the 30 car field, you see the effect of that as a little mistake costs you easily 10 spots. JC Hay losing just a handful.
Yeah, that was not the prettiest of sequences, but the thing is, when it comes to Interlagos, there was, in some racing leagues we've called in the past couple weeks, in fact, a major thought point of, don't do the Verstappen. Don't try and pinch somebody off it towards that blue space at the side of the racetrack, and in turn, try and make the pass that way. If you go side by side, there's a chance that it's going to lead to tears and or broken fenders. It just seems to be the trend as of late.
Mike Grandy and Peter Hallstrom are going to battle at the end of the pit straight and into this big descent as you turn down from turn 1 through turn 2, then onto the sweeping flat-out turn 3 curve to Sol. Mike Grandy making some moves, and in fact he's one of the biggest movers in the race so far with 7 positions gained, matched only by Mike McCormick, one of the quick drivers who had no qualifying time, started 29th on the grid, now up to 19th and making some moves in the background of where some positions are trading places here. Franz Josef Stum, his roll hoop says Stummy, and he's making some spots likewise.
Yeah, a lot of drivers are actually making up a fair amount of ground for the qualifying spots, some as high as 4 to 5.
No, I cursed him.
There goes all the progression you were just talking about for McCormick. Right back to square one.
He's still 1 position gained from where he started.
That's square 1.1.
It's still not optimal though, and you're seeing the traction zones being a struggle point for a lot of drivers. So it was picking up the throttle out of turn 2 for Ragnar Wisloff, who's still limping around there with damage. This is turn 3 though. He's on the outside 3 wide. The driver's on the inside. Ooh, have a little bit of a moment, and you need to be so wide of the apex if you're going to swoop around the outside of 2 other drivers in that 3 wide maneuver, and there just didn't feel like there was space there.
And you have to give space if you want to get a clean run in this kind of a circumstance. Keep in mind, as we look at some of the other battles like Hallstrom, Franz Josef Strum, who's doing solidly. These are amongst the drivers I was just trying to refer to a little bit. Now watch that be a curse. That's +5 for Strum for reference. Hallstrom losing ground because all those fast runners are trying to run by quick.
So Bill Smith in blue here, through turns 4 and 5, working his way forward. There's a few corners that in a high horsepower low grid car would definitely be challenging corners that are close to flat out in an F3 car here, like turn 3, like turn 5, but absolutely challenge still presented by Interlagos at all of the other parts of the lap. And of course, at Zensfield, the quality drivers, meaning that you're not only racing the circuit, you're racing everyone else around you here. There's Barry Hills in 25th. It's 19th through to 28th. There's a pack here as we're on lap 5. So they're very, very equal, even towards the tail of the field. No one having a boring race without someone else to race against, maybe except for Greg Seitz running away with the lead at the front of the field. And I'm sure he won't be too disappointed about that.
Take a look at Mike Grandy, though. He's actually one of the top drivers in terms of the series' cup program, as pit stop on the way for Jack Turner. This is an early time to be able to come in for the fuel, but this might be the undercut call we talked about, maybe.
Yeah, possibility. We'll see if Ragnar Wisloff is also in. If we've reached the pit window, he'll want to come in to get that damage fixed. Russ Addy side by side through the opening chicane. And he's going wheel to wheel with Douglas Beasley, trying to recover from some early spots lost. Addy had a good qualifying. And it looks like Bill Smitham still picking off more spots. Pierre Benetze, a newish driver to the league, also trying to get in and amongst the fight.
Yeah, we talked about how drivers have a lot of interest in terms of joining in on the action. And amongst those, several different drivers showing interest in the past couple weeks with the season coming towards a close here. But I almost argue that I know there's the potential of playing spoiler in the championship that scares some away and may discourage them because of the competitor thought. But at the same time, if you want to join now, why not join? Why not see before you run the full season? Okay, I want to see how things look in a couple races, see if I can run part-time, get a feel of it, then run for the full-time. Just try and get a feel of how the competition level is going to be. And for Bennett, so far, the pace when it comes to him, right about towards where he started.
So obviously the pit window is open because we've seen Ragnar Wisloff come through, so he's going to try to repair all of his suspension, get a new nose on, see how quick he can be in the remaining 12 laps to the end of this race. A few other drivers are going to react to the pit entry. It's an interesting one here. You can brake super late on a sharp uphill. You can apparently brake super late or too late into turn one. If you're Frank Butler, he was trying to take the old classic Grand Prix layout that carries along up there and is now a little bit of a runoff. It was gutsy, it was brave. I suspect it was a little bit foolish.
Yeah, that's a good way to lose a lot of spots. Just like how Barry Hills tried to make a pass in the grass on the outside for a moment. You have to be smart on these moves. If you're trying to pass in the grass on iRacing, remember it's like black ice. For those who have never seen ice before, black ice means no hope for traction. You're hydroplaning into the nearest object. You don't want that object to take you out of the race.
Justin, what's snow like?
What's snow? Well,
No kidding.
Snow these days is the one thing you see, at least where I'm at, once maybe every 3 months of winter time, and maybe it's cold. If not, it disappears for a day that comes back 2 days later. That's what snow is where I'm from.
I've told producer Iku Metakala, I think on more than one occasion, one day I dreamed to ice skate on a large open frozen lake. No chance of that happening at home. Barry Hills has a decent chance of making some spots here on the short run on the inside of the run up the pit straight. A few other drivers hitting pit lane. So we've had Leif Hellberg now, we've had Richard Coulomb now, Franz Brink, Ragnar Wisloff, and some others as well. The battling continues in the braking zone here. As Barry Hills from round the outside will leave Richard Coulomb in his dust. You made a very, very quick mention to it earlier, Justin, but it's good to talk about that this is the longest running championship of 60-plus racing adventures. The single-seater league, originally in the Pro Mazda, then to the Indy PM18, and it's the first season now in the Dallara F3, but there are a couple of other 60-plus racing adventures leagues for drivers who are fond of other types of racing as well. Incredibly popular, not just in this car, but some others.
Yeah, we were talking about, before the pit stop started, Grandy, for example, is amongst those with experience in the next-gen car. He beat Randy Shoemake just in the past couple of days for that championship. That point differential, about 50 or so points in the end. But also there's the FIA F4 car championship. John Payne is in the top 3. He's looked very solid in the F3 car as well, and you see on the pylon. So he's doing what he's pretty much been hoping for. Getting the chance for the podium, race towards the front. He right now has solid pace to be able to battle with the 966. In fact, there's a good chance if he's able to keep it close, he might be able to try and leapfrog him for second.
an eye on the lap times of some of the drivers who've already pitted, but the majority thought is stay out long. This is an older spec of F3 car. It is very, very light. Even just a couple of litres of fuel have a big effect on it. I think they're sub 500 kilos, to be honest. Very, very light, very nimble race car. Fuel weight has a big effect on the lap time. Here we got some team liveries. JC Hay in 15th, Club Ohio, Eugene Clark, Michigan. So some Midwest boys flying their flag, but also flying it a little bit in the paved runoff on the outside of turn 4.
I believe these are actually fellow teammates if you look livery to livery. And you talked about how teams themselves like to work together. Drivers were already told before today the setup itself had 3.6 gallons. The capacity in the tank, interestingly enough, is 4.56. So drivers were warned to keep in mind, if you are going to have to come in, which we know that's the case here, plan around that window and don't be in that situation where you accidentally take too much gas. After all, it's gas time.
Great camera angle, picked it up at not quite the right time. Greg Seitz having just some little connection bobbles, but he still leads the race more than 7 seconds. Timing columns lighting up with some other drivers hitting the pit lane. John Payne, John Morgan, Franz Josef Stum.
And if we're hearing correctly, we might have just had a technical blip for I think a lot of those drivers from the Midwest, if I'm hearing correctly.
Now, are you smarter than me to know the difference between an upload and a download packet loss drop?
Well, upload means, well, you're the one uploading. Download means you're the one downloading, correct?
I feel like... No, I don't feel any smarter than a couple of seconds ago, but thank you for trying.
Yeah, now you're confused. I know it's a simple question, but explain.
Well, the iRacing notification is JC Hay connection dropped due to download packet loss. Sometimes the message says someone's dropped due to upload packet loss. And I guess the idea there is that you can work out on which end the disconnection was. But correctly pointed out that a lot of those drivers are geographically from the same region. So it's happened before in some iRacing special events, for example, that at 3 a.m. A German ISP decides they're going to turn everything off and on again, and a whole bunch of Germans from the same region get disconnected or something. Occasionally, you know, an outage to one provider. Maybe they're all on AT&T.
Did you get $5 credit for it?
No, never had an account with AT&T. It's busy on pit lane. Again, with Richard Coulomb, Barry Hills, Bob Kern. Some of the drivers who are rejoining, they will actually have the opportunity, I suspect, to refuel as they rejoin. But everyone has now been through the pit lane as Greg Seitz is on his out lap, having added about 5 seconds of fuel, a conservative number from the leader, as he had plenty of time in pocket. It's now down to just 6.7 seconds from John Payne. I think Greg Seitz will be happy to have a safe amount of fuel to see out this race and the remaining laps. Race 1 or 2 for 60 Plus Racing Adventures season finale from Interlagos.
Once again, Greg Seitz just doing Greg Seitz things. He's just been lights out when it comes to driving this race car. And I think if anyone wants a chance to be able to touch him in the race coming up here to close out the season, they're going to hope for some luck here, because he is lights out. And I mean, to the point where the lights are basically out of light bulbs. He's very much in control, you can argue, for a back-to-back title.
We're looking at fastest lap times on the timing tower to the left. So a lot of 128s, 129s. It's a 127.1 from Greg Seitz. So lights out, I believe, means 0.6 a lap faster than everyone else. And you can go to timing.RaceSpotTV that has the live timing and can tell you that. Can tell you some pit stop times as well. And in race 2, it can tell you who's pitted, who hasn't, and give you all the information that you want. If you're following a particular driver for any particular reason, that might help you keep abreast of their race. Barry Hills is in 20th place, battling with David Bradley, the green car behind. This pit stop's maybe broken up some of the battles that we were seeing. It was all battle packs in the first half of this race. There's a little bit of spread. Let's see if the final 6 laps bring them back together.
I think potentially if you're able to find some draft, it's going to be helpful to be able to compress things, but it's been made pretty clear. If you have outright confidence and pace on the racetrack, it's going to be hard to stop said drivers today on outright confidence and pace on the racetrack. With that being considered here, drivers like McCormick we're seeing right now really showcasing some solid speed here today. McCormick amongst those that were towards the middle of the table per se. Coming into this round, we're looking towards the points tables. So I think for a lot of these competitors, it is more so, can you get X position solidified? McCormick, for reference, came in 9th. Had Hallstrom close behind. Still had good chances after the drop was factored in essentially to try and get to Grandy with them tied, with Hills, etc. McCormick needs to find pace is what I'm trying to say here, though. Because right now Payne's in the position where he can jump past 2 or 3 drivers in the points.
By the end of the day, it might be the House of Pain. We'll find out. Good race from him at the moment in second. Very rapid pit stop. That can be important. Also, around here, quite a challenging pit entry and pit exit. You arrive at that pit entry at a lot of speed. The cones are at the top of a hill, and you can brake in super deep, but of course you don't want to be the driver who picks up a pit lane speeding penalty. And then the pit exit, it also has 3 corners around here at Interlagos as you follow narrow little rally stage down out and around turns 1, 2, and 3.
And I find it intriguing to call that the rally stage per se, because for so long it's been one of the more iconic portions of the racetrack since the shortening, as you talked about with Senna as, because of that ability with the not just for the send, just the elevation change of the challenge for Curva de Sol. Being said here, though, you can only get so far by sheer bravery, sheer power send, sheer tenacity. Because if you aren't good in this track that Payne's in right now, all the way from turn 6 all the way to Jun Sao, being good in Sector 1 means nothing if you can't be close enough to be able to make a pass on somebody because you struggled in this middle sector.
And of course, it is a fixed setup for everyone, so everyone's running the same wing level, but were it open setup, you would have some big decisions to make. It's always interesting when there's tracks of sort of that characteristic. You've got one big long straight and then a twisty sector, so the setup compromise should be made. Spoken about the weekend just gone at Mount Panorama. You can be super quick across the top of the mountain, but you can't pass there. You've got to be quick down the straight. Same thing happens at Baku, Azerbaijan. Same thing happens at Circuit Gia, Macau. Same thing can happen here. And Ross Addy is 8th. Still on a bit of a recovery run, but he's in the toe of 7th place, Franz Josef Stum.
Franz Josef Stum, he's actually picked up a couple spots in the midst of everything. Remember, the last time we checked in on him, it was around the 10th position. He's been able to slowly pick himself up and be able to get the time gathered up to make said positions up. He did come into today around the 13th spot. Right now, he's looking himself with Brent Shoemake. Not here, Eugene Clark. He was in the midst of battles. We've seen Clark towards the back. Now he's got to deal with a lot of pressure because Addy is amongst those who needs points to be able to try and close up a few more spots in the championship. Nicely done.
Up towards Ferradura, the horseshoe. Ross Addy, very strong move and looking pretty rapid here. Monstering the curbs more than others are willing to do, and we've seen that be the source of a little spin out or two. Ross Addy up in 7th, Franz Josef Stum is still 7 positions gained through this race though to 8th place, and they've both got about 5 seconds to the next cars behind. So his eyes forward at Randy Shoemake in 6th, mayhaps. And both of them quicker on the last lap than Randy Shoemake in 6th. There's still a little bit of life left in this race with the leader starting 4 to go. Actually just now on, no, 3 to go. It is lap 16 of 18, 3 to go.
And we talk so much in terms of all the context here. Here's a major thing to consider. You mentioned the team championship. Rust Racing is the team Greg Seitz is with Mike McCormick for the championship, mind you. The situation with Wisloff to start off the race really puts Ram Racing on the back foot. Yes, Wisloff's been able to recover to 14th, but they were still within a great chance to be able to make the championship go their direction for a second straight season. Rust Racing has a good chance, even with McCormick's struggles here, to be able to try and get this done. Wisloff needs to keep going in the next couple laps to close out this race, get as many points as possible, make it to where it's tight, because right now that difference with McCormick might be their main shot to try and get a team title.
He's been from the top, he's been from the bottom, spun out from 2nd place, damage to the very tail of the field. Ragnar Wisloff now running 14th. And he can see Leif Hellberg, another Scandinavian driver just in front of him. Or can he see him? He's there, trust me. And then Jack Turner just ahead of that, the next car as well. Some possible positions to be made. And it'll be a struggle to find too many more after that. Ragnar Wisloff is pressing on, the leader starting the final lap of the race soon.
And remember, the reason I emphasize that too here, David, that issue with a lot of the drivers putting them a lap plus down because the technical issue is pretty significant. We're talking about Grandy specifically, 27. That's a huge swing for the team championship. All that being said, Craig Vaughn amongst those who looks to try and battle it on here. Craig Vaughn coming into today, just 165 points. This is one of his better rounds on the season if you look at the point table.
The battle's on. Pierre Benete. Oh, careful. Careful, my friend. Trying
That's
to
not a
defend
good spot.
11th place, now running off the road, and Craig Vaughn in behind. Leif Hellberg and Ragnar Wisloff, then the next 2 cars behind. Pierre Benete's last lap in the 130s, dropping off a little bit of pace to these cars behind. They're beginning to catch. The track temp getting even hotter, so it's tough to keep the pace up. And these cars will be getting just slightly slidier.
And here's one thing to consider. Craig Vaughn is towards the bottom of the CPI average, coming in about 60 every 64 corners. Usually gets an incident point. That being said, Greg Seitz usually keeps it extremely clean. Every 120 corners gets maybe the 1 incident point or so. He's right now in the clear by nearly 10 seconds. This could likely be one of his largest wins of the season.
Yep, out to 10 seconds. Meanwhile, it's only just a couple of seconds that cover some of the other battles elsewhere throughout the field. So this final lap going to be very important. It carries nothing over into race number 2 though. That has its own brand new qualifying session, and there will be another race there to see out this season of 60 Plus Racing Adventures. Greg Seitz working his way through the middle of the lap, through the Bico de Pato, the Duxville, now down towards Junsao, the junction that takes you back uphill, and he's got no braking zones left in this lap. As long as he's got enough fuel, which you expect he would, up the hill towards the checkered flag will come Greg Seitz after he works his way through just a couple of these left-handers, past all of the fans, drinking their caipirinhas and whatever else, and they can celebrate with him as Greg Seitz takes the win in the final round of the season, seals up the 60 Plus Racing Adventures Championship. Well done, well won, Greg Seitz. Other battles to the line are Randy Shoemake versus Russ Addy, Craig Vaughn, Leif Hellberg. Ragnar Wisloff could get 2 on this final lap if he's super smart, but it's going to need a mega slipstream, and he's going to need to channel his inner Pierre Gasly.
And that's going to be very difficult, to say the least. Give credit to Shoemake holding off Addy at the line, but Wisloff, He's been basically in second spot just about every single race. Last round alone, back-to-back second place runs. A strong recovery from basically dead last, David, the 14th. However, Wisloff, if he wants a chance for the team title, which I still say is not fully over yet, David, he's going to need to hope for a lot of luck to have a shot.
Never say never, but Ragnar Wisloff is going to need to find a serious points haul in the final round. Let's run over the results of race 1 of 2 from 60 plus racing adventures at Interlagos as the drivers are just finishing up race 1 of 2.
I mean, let me just say one thing here, David, in terms of that. The interval today, he more than doubled it combined of the last race in this one alone. That's how big the interval was.
It's 10.7 seconds. Greg Seitz from John Payne and Gerhardus Jorrison, then John Morgan, Bruce Poole, Randy Shoemake, Russ Addy, Franz Josef Stum, Jack Turner, Peter Hellstrom completing the top 10, Justin.
Well done indeed. You also have Bennett, Vaught, Hellberg, Ragnar Wisloff, 40 seconds back, recovered from a full-on wing change. Beasley, McCormick, Clark, Colombo along with Hills and Kern amongst the top 20. Rest of the field looks like this. David Bradley along with Butler and Valley on the lead lap. Laps down include Brink, Smitham, Garris, Mike Grandy, along with Setzer and Kerr. Also having some issues due to the technical blip amongst many of those towards the West in Ohio regions, Hay and Love. Love finished 9 down. So, as we get set for one more race to go on the season, let's take the chance to talk with John Payne. He's just discussing things with Greg Seitz. First things first, John. Here it's a congratulations order when it comes to the F4 title. Second things second, how would you describe the F3 first part of the finale here today?
Oh, well, for me, when I see Ragnar spin in front of me, I'm like, okay, that's a plus for me. And then it was just chasing down second. I had a very good pit stop. I was able to jump him in the pits, and then I just tried to lay down some quick laps to put, get him out of draft. And once that was done, turned out I barely had enough fuel to finish, but finish I did, and so it was good. But what I was most happy with is no incident points. I can be a little wild out there, so I concentrated on just no incident points. So for me, happy.
Now, to touch back upon the F4 side of the card, that's a series we usually don't see on the airways, but he did hold off Russ Addy by a slim margin of just under 30 points. How does it feel in terms of that side to win the season 29 F4 title this week?
Well, it's good. That's a stepping stone to move up. I might need Greg to retire if I ever plan on doing anything in F3, but you never know. You never know. Maybe I'll someday find the magic extra second that he has. But winning the F4 was fun, and that car seems to suit me. I don't know if the twitch is just too much higher in the F3, but I do pretty good in the F4.
So with that being said, still one more race to go on the card here today. What's the approach going to be for race 2? Do you change anything? What's the game plan and what you plan to do differently for race 2?
I think I need to qualify better. I had one of the faster laps in practice, and I just didn't string it together in qualifying. So I'd like to knock 3 tenths off my qualifying time and get me closer to the front. So if Greg takes off, Ragnar's following in his draft for a while. If I can follow Ragnar's and try to get some gap. I don't do well with pressure from behind, so I'm a better follower.
Well, on that note, John, thank you very much once again for the time. Good luck in race 2.
Thank you, guys.
That's John Payne with a solid run here today on the podium. And now that David Haynes has just finished chasing a budgie that flew in from outside, it's been chirping outside his window all day. He's with Greg Seitz.
Race 1 winner, and I am not jumping the gun to say season champion in 60 plus racing adventures, Greg Seitz. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, David.
I want to say I thought you'd be a little more excited, but having looked at the points, this felt like a little bit of a formality. It's good to see you at Interlagos and showing the same pace that's had you in this position all season long.
Yeah, I think I wrapped up the championship a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, I was kind of hoping. I mean, Ragnar's been there most of the season. He's had some bad luck, and I think he missed a couple of races, so that made it a little less interesting at the end. But other than that, I think we would have been fighting.
So, tell us about your journey to 60 plus racing adventures. You're one of the more recent competitors. I wear out the line, more people turn 60 every day, but it seems to be true.
Greg, do you have a copy?
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah. So no, I just turned 60 about 9 months ago and jumped in the league. I was kind of raring to go, and I think my first season I was like half a season, and then the last two I think it was that I've been through the whole season, and yeah, it's fun. It's a great group of guys. I actually like the format we have here. Having fixed setups kind of evens things out for people, and so it's really comes down to driver skill that differentiates us. But yeah, overall, it's been a great time.
Pit stop race, what did you think? Does it add? Does it take away? Is it just a change as good as a holiday?
No, I think I like the pit stop race. It adds more challenge to things. I noticed actually I lost a little time in this one, so if it was a little closer, yeah, I think it would have been much more challenging, kind of too conservative. And
now you've got a bit of an MO now, so I think I can guess what we might see from you in race number 2. Is it going to be similar? Is it going to be the Greg Seitz special?
yeah, I'll start mid-pack or something like that. We'll see where it goes from there, but I don't think I can count on Ragnar having an issue in the next race, so he'll be really tough to catch, and John as well.
Well, we look forward to seeing you then. Congrats once again from us on a really, really great season, and enjoy your racing.
Thank you.
Justin, there's one more driver hanging around, and we've got the time, and he's a great guy, and I think John Morgan's probably our Super 70s champion. Justin can investigate.
Yes, indeed. And John, first things first, talk us through that race for the first half of today, how you felt that went.
Pretty good. I saw cars spinning in front of me, and was lucky enough to be in a position to avoid them, and was going to try to jump Greg Garris by pitting a couple laps early, but came back out. He had obviously something had happened to him. So yeah, sort of by default, I kind of moved myself up there, but had a good solid race. My teammate Bruce Poole had a great race for our team, and yeah, it's just a great season. Wanted to stop by and thank you guys for the job that you've done this year, and just say a little bit about Mark Leeson, who I think you guys have dealt with. And Mark was a pretty integral part of our league in terms of managing our finances and taking care of setting up all of our Wednesday races, and has worked closely with Joel, the prior league admin, and myself. So we're going to miss him.
Thank you for touching upon that. It obviously has been an emotional time, as there was a lot of discussion in terms of the past week, especially on the forum, in regards to tributes, in terms of what the plans are, in terms of the fact, I believe one driver has a petition to try and name the GT3 series after him. But that being said, as the league as a whole gets ready for its final race of the season for the F3 cars. What's going through your mind as the season comes to a close and essentially as being this plus 70 champion once more?
Just just have fun. This is just such a great league. It's a lot of really good racing down through the field, and guys are, generally from top to bottom very respectful. We're fortunate to have guys like Greg that sort of drag us all forward a little bit with speed. But yeah, it's just a great bunch of guys. We all share a love for racing, and I think that's what keeps bringing us all back.
So with that being said, what is your approach to find yourself towards the front and see if you can get back towards the podium for the final time this season?
Qualifying. I messed up my second qualifying lap a little bit. I'd like to be a little bit closer to the front. You lose the draft at this track, and you can drop pretty quickly. So that's actually the mistake I made in the first. I let Greg get a little bit too far away, lost the draft. Got to stay close. Obviously, qualifying a little, trying to qualified 8th. I'd like to be the 5 range. Better chance of grabbing that front group and staying with them.
So once again, John, thank you so much for the time. We'll let you get to the preparations for the final race of the season.
Thank you, sir.
That's John Morgan in line for the 70-plus title, David, in Turnwood today. He was also one of those in the conversation for the F4 title fight. Actually finished that in the top 3 for that respective championship. However, the drivers in front ended up having that little bit extra buffer before today. Morgan, at the very least, can say is in line for at least the top 5 on the campaign.
Just a very, very consistent competitor. Always a sniff of the podium. 4th place in this first race, but he won't give up with the race coming up next. Great of him to stop by and, share his thoughts and his memories on Marc Lasson. Great to hear that perspective. Stay with us on RaceSpotTV. We go to a short break, and when we return, it's the final race of the final round of 60-plus racing adventures from Interlagos, and we get to watch 18 more laps of great racing and tie a bow on this season and championship. Thanks for staying with us and welcome back to 60 Plus Racing Adventures, the final race of the final round on RaceSpotTV. David Haynes here with Justin Prince and our producer Ikku Matakala. Drivers are just finishing their outlaps for the qualifying session that will set the grid for race number 2. An eye on a driver who always loves to bag a cheeky little podium. Consistency is key. And we'll see what qualifying can produce for Greg Seitz, who won race number 1. John Payne, who was on the podium with him. And always in search of the podium, John Morgan.
And as we talked about with a lot of drivers, the goal is pretty simple. Qualify better. I know that sounds like a simple goal, per se, David, but that's actually very easier said than done, because you're talking about a whole new session, getting back into a rhythm after being in full race mode. And you can absolutely argue that qualifying mode and race mode are two separate things. For example, I'll use myself in this example bit. I find it extremely hard to do the hot lap, period. I can set a great race tempo lap in qualifying, but can't set a good qualifying lap in qualifying, if you get what I mean. You have to be that type of driver that can separate the quali and the race as two different modes and two different ways of setting speed.
This will be the first flying lap attempt from John Morgan. Track limits pretty key around here then on a qualifying lap. You're not so worried through this part of the lap here, but it's the outside of Junsao at functionally the final corner, also the outside of turn 4, where you do have to be so precise with those track limits. This doesn't look like it's a mega push from John Morgan, which is wise with just 2 laps available.
So for John Morgan, keep in mind, this is amongst those seem pretty solid in the last run, that top 5 speed. And I'll expect a lot of drivers to take a slightly different line than you may see in the race. Try and get as much of that line as you can just before that pit entry. Try and cut that run. Right now, the top time for reference is the 127.9s. That time by Morgan, putting himself at the 128.5s. He needs to find a lot more.
And I suspect the drivers will, the way that the tyre warm-up goes, short out laps, short flying laps. Definite chance that lap 2 is significantly quicker, but the opening lap, 27.9 from Ragnar Wisloff, not bad. I do think that's quicker than anything we saw in race 1 for a fastest lap. So the car seems pretty responsive, potentially pretty light. Ragnar Wisloff is on track to improve on that. Personal best through the first mini sector, through the second mini sector, through the middle of the lap he goes, and he's still tracking for an improvement on 27.9. And he goes purple through the third sector. Barry Hills and Mike McCormick has some purple sectors now through the start of the lap. So this will be a fiercely contested qualifying session, even if I think pole will be set relatively early within the 10 minutes. Ragnar Wisloff will improve, and then we'll see if that remains at the top of the board. You've done almost all the work you can do. Now you just keep the foot to the floorboards and follow the shortest line around the inside of the Armco to the checkered flag and the timing line. A long way down this pit straight. See, Russ Addy finds a little bit of an improvement. Some of the others find an improvement. Ragnar Wisloff will shoot back to the top, just ahead of John Payne, just ahead of Russ Addy. Other laps coming in, John Morgan, Greg Garris shoot to 4th and 5th.
Here's the thing I'm keeping an eye, though. Greg Seitz yet to record a lap on the board. And from what the hearing is, usually doesn't run the laps the second time out. He's already secured a championship. So it's up to Greg, if you really arguably want to say, if he elects to go back out, for example. He is out there. It's just going to take he's not on the first lap per se on the board yet. And this is what everybody else is going to be keeping an eye on, is what's the lap time going to be? We know the tires take a couple laps to heat up. We also know that Seitz Extremely dialed in. That wasn't the great dialed in sector, though. He had a lot of curbing there.
Yeah, we'll see what he does. He's going to do a little bit of playing with his food for the final race of proceedings. Only other driver without a qualifying time at the moment is Jerry Kerr. Everyone else within this session has done one, from Earl Setzer in 24th, obviously up towards Ragnar Wisloff, who did a full sort of formation in-lap here as well in this session. So again, another opportunity to practice that pit entry. If you feel like you didn't nail it in race 1, good opportunity at the end of qualifying to attack the pit lane entry and just practice that you know is going to be just one part of your race, but you're only going to do it once in the race. Greg Seitz, he's up on this lap, to be honest with you. This isn't bad. He's underneath Wisloff's first sectors. He drops a chunk, a couple tenths through here. And he might just roll off of it before Junsao. Again, I have no idea how to correctly pronounce that. It's somewhere between Jun Cao and Yun Chao. And I'm not hitting wherever it is in the middle, but I know the name.
I don't think it's the latter one. I can tell you that much. But for Greg, this is, I think, going to be a flyer. 128.6. Not as high as I thought for that lap. He lost a lot of time in that final sector.
Yes. Yes, he did. By some amount of design. It puts him 15. He was aiming for mid-pack, and now that he's seen everyone else's laps, he's seen where that first one put him. If he wants to, he can just go a tenth, 2 tenths underneath that. If he wants to, he can not improve. And that looks to be what Greg Seitz is going for. Just dropping 1 second on the first qualifying lap, which sits him at 15th. 1 second covers your top 12 so far in this qualifying session with 90 seconds left.
Again, the sectors, he's picking up the pace. He just set the fastest sector in 1 and 2 in this entire session. Can he get this right sector down? This final sector, this is his last chance. This is the last chance in general for anybody to try and improve their lap time. Everybody else is done.
Yeah, we'll see. I feel like this is probably about what he was aiming for. Maybe he'll take a tenth or two off this one. From a 128.6 to a 128.3 to just send himself to 10th. And he and Peter Holstrom are the only cars left out on track. I think I see Peter Holstrom completing an in-lap. So I think within the time of the session, Holstrom, if he's rolling, will get to the pit entry to practice that pit entry. Taking a look at the pit lane that the drivers will need again in the upcoming race. As a Formula 1 Grand Prix track, it is a pit lane speed limit of 80 kilometers an hour. That's true of... It was a revamp recently that went along with a revamp to the F1 cars on the service, that every Grand Prix track got an 80 kilometer an hour pit lane speed limit. I think with the exception of Silverstone, because of that big cut that the pit entry makes. It needs to be a slower pit lane speed limit so you don't gain time through the pit lane. And it also gives you the great quirk that Spa's Grand Prix pit is 80 kilometers an hour, but the endurance pit is 60 kilometers an hour. Different pit lane speed limit from different configurations. We are gridding up. No extra formation lap for race number 2. And the grid will look like this for race number 2. Ragnar Wisloff on the pole, John Payne in second, Gerhardus Jorrison, Russ Addy, John Morgan, Greg Garris. Drivers once again up the pointy end of the field. Russ Addy will hope that he can keep it tidy on cold tyres on this race start for race number 2. Barry Hills, Mike McCormick, Leif Hellberg, Greg Seitz, Mike Grandy, and Pierre Benetze. Benetze? It's not Italian, it's French. Okay, maybe I'll have to change my pronunciation on that one. Peter Holstrom, Jack Turner, Randy Shoemake, Franz Josef Sturm, Bruce Poole, and Douglas Beasley to 18th. Like I say, we got a qualifying time out of just about everyone, even if they're not showing here. With JC Hay, Frank Butler, Eugene Clark, Richard Coulomb, David Bradley, Richard Varley, Earl Setzer, and Jerry Kerr. Yeah, we got a qualifying time for everyone to Earl Setzer. Jerry Kerr, the only driver without a qualifying time. It's just not showing them on that graphic. It will be 18 laps. Once again, second race, same settings as the first. Gives the drivers the opportunity to learn from race 1 into race 2, Justin.
And it's the matter of which drivers have adapted the best, because Wislov, remember, got light, got loose in the early going. That took him out of contention, really opened up the battle for the lead. We talked with Payne, looking to get the better qualifying position. He's already finished up that respective goal. Morgan, not so much. Absolutely not for Greg Seitz. It's been night and day for Greg Seitz compared to the first round. That being said here, I think this battle, at least in the early going, David, is going to be extremely exciting, because Wislov's going to be hungry for that team title, trying to get as many points as much as possible at this rate after the bad luck for his teammate, for Payne. We've already seen him already as the F4 champion, wanting to see if he can make the next step. He already said, bad luck for Seitz might open the door, and guess what? This might be his door opened up.
So the front row, Ragnar Wislov and John Payne about to take the green flag. On the left-hand side, the Viking. On the right-hand side, the Longhorn from Texas, with Gerhardus Jorgensen and Russ Addy behind. Pace car in momentarily. The green flag waves, it gets us underway. They're very wide with their rows at the back of the field. But Ragnar Wislov, a decent start. Everyone needs to once again be careful of their cold tyres heading into the centre chicane, then following the Curva de Sol. There's 3 wide that somehow doesn't end in disaster, as Mike Grandy's making up a whole chunk of positions through this. Greg Seitz, he's also on a tour, plus 3 spots gained. There's a bit of a squeeze on the exit of Curva de Sol there, but heading down the second longest straight into turn number 4. Ragnar Wislov still leads them. No change inside of the top 6. It's Greg Seitz in 7th, where it all starts chopping and changing.
I think Seitz is going to be the one to have to keep an eye on, because Wislov's got the clean air. He's got the advantage in the early going to set the tempo. But if you already have... Yes.
Would you say that we need to see the Seitz?
Boo.
That's what I deserve. Thank you. Sorry, carry on.
Yes. Very punny. Very punny. I was about to say, for Greg Seitz, his sights are set on one place, the front of the field.
Boo.
I deserve that back. Thank you very much. But that being said, if you already have somebody making that many spots up to the point where he's nearly at range for 4 spots in a lap, he's going to be very difficult to be able to defend here. He looks very dialed in. He already diamonded the corner to try and get the triple toe here.
I feel like we're closer than we were just a couple of minutes ago. Yes, great run from Greg Seitz up the hill. The combination of up the hill, the big slipstream, the long straight, giving him a run. A look down the inside. Russ Addy also making up some spots in the run through here. Seitz, did he get the double? No, just Greg Garris sets him in behind John Morgan down the next straight. I think it's a bit of a slide, trying to pick up the traction with cold tyres on the curb. We all know cold tyres are a challenge all of their own. Cold tyres and curbs don't mix very well. Russ Addy round the outside, getting sent back behind Gerhardus Jorgensen in a battle for the podium that quickly brings John Morgan, always a chance of a podium, and Greg Seitz, your new 60 Plus Racing Adventures champion, into the mix.
And I think Seitz has to make it quite simple. Do this one at a time. I know that sounds like simple, rudimentary advice, but you're not going to go from 6th to 1st in the span of a lap. This isn't Daytona International Speedway. This is the type of racetrack. You need to pick them off one by one. Get it done slowly, efficiently, but also at the same time. But the efficient part, you can't have it for 2 to 3 corners. You already see the line difference. He's using the esports line essentially to get that ramp for that front straightaway. That's a good way to do it quickly and efficiently.
You heard it here first. Greg Seitz, esports pro. He's already up ahead into 5th. Now putting John Morgan behind him. Decent distance up to Gerhardus Joris and Russ Addy, who are going to battle once again in towards turn 2. Russ Addy gets down the inside of Gerhardus Jorison. John Payne's going with John Morgan at the lead of the race. Still a couple of seconds up the road to see if Greg Seitz, having worked his way forward through the field with some battles in front of him, can catch them. Good move. Russ Addy sitting 3rd.
Addy's already losing on the ground. Same for JC Hay, who's 11 seconds away from the race leader. Rough qualifying runs for drivers like Stom, Hallstrom and company, though. We've seen a lot further up the field. That's a little bit nearly further up the gearbox on the send. Oh, and that's not the place to pass, to hard inside against the curbing.
So JC Hay holds the position from Franz Josef Stum behind. Peter Holstrom and Bruce Poole, drivers who lost some positions on the start, keep trying to challenge here. Eugene Clark, Richard Coulomb in behind Frank Butler, Jerry Kerr, part of this train. Another great battle early on in this race. Drivers relatively inseparable.
Yeah, this is getting a little bit too chippy, so to speak, because if you get to the point where you're starting to nearly dive up the inside against the inside wall, you have to reevaluate things. Greg Seitz doing this near perfectly. Yet again, diameter what he set up, using the line that a lot of drivers basically use when they don't care about incident points, but also to get him in the corner, make the pass, don't have to battle side by side, don't lose time in the next corner, in turn, still has the draft. From here though, it's all about raw driver speed, because once he gets past Addy, you're not going to have that toe to make it easy. It's going to take the rest of the race to get up to Whistle-Off and Payne.
Here we go, battling deeper in the field over 12th place. Randy Shoemake's 3 spots gained. He's trying to defend from Leif Hellberg and Jack Turner and Douglas Beasley. Strength of 60 Plus Racing Adventures has always been that everyone has someone around their speed, around their skill level that they can race, and week on week get to know them, get to know how they race, and be confident that you can trust the other driver and have some good racing in that way.
Yeah, we know Randy Shoemake is really talented when it comes to IndyCar chances in particular. Hallstrom, though, depending on how the incident points lay out, may very well be in line for the best gentleman driver. And essentially, the Gentleman Racer Award is the cleanest racer in regards to incident points, and also in regards to that tally I mentioned, the CPI rating throughout an entire season. And for the most part, Hallstrom has controlled the cleanest race award for almost every single run. That was nearly not so clean. Greg Seitz locked it up to try and get that pass done.
Yeah, Greg Seitz moving up to 3rd. A couple of drivers beginning to hit pit lane behind this. Peter Holstrom's the first to try to top off, maybe get into some clean air for the other drivers. If you've got a quick car in front of you that can tow you around, that's a great place to be. We'll see for us, Addy, can it all stay with Greg Seitz? What's going to be the move here? Leif Hellberg on Randy Shoemake. Hellberg down the inside at 4. Big squeeze there, and the driver on the outside can use a lot more space. The driver on the outside will use a lot more space. Jack Turner also now looking to get down the inside from trying to make a move. Hellberg might get caught around the outside of Ferragira. Is there any grip out there? There is. What a move, Leif Hellberg.
Yeah, nicely done. Nicely done in terms of timing it up, taking advantage of a lot of the focus being put by Shoemake on the behind, and guess what? He's now on the back foot. Just can't get back in the rhythm. He needs to be able to take a deep breath, say, okay, let's reset. Here's the problem. That's hard to do when you have drivers like Douglas Beasley wanting to get by quickly. And sometimes drivers say, I don't like you resetting. I don't want you to take a deep breath. I want to make passes. You reset back in 35th.
Close fights all the way. A few more drivers staying to the inside of that white line once they get inside of it, staying inside as they head for pit entry. So Mike Grandy's in, someone else deeper in the field is in. Doesn't seem like something the drivers up front will want to do. This is up front. John Payne looking for the lead of the race. Greg Seitz barreling down on the both of them. Ragnar Wisloff back to second as John Payne gets down the inside at the Interlagos. Looks like he'll have good enough speed up the hill to Ferradura to defend it as well. Licking your lips seeing this if you're Greg Seitz in third place. But John Payne, he fancies leading a lap.
This is exactly the type of race I think he was waiting to see. How was this going to go? How was I going to get this lead? How am I now going to defend? Because the true test is on. Seitz, he's coming and coming on fast. Last time by, well, 7/10 quicker yet again. Where have we seen that before?
You may remember him from previous episodes of 60 Plus Racing Adventures. Greg Seitz now almost within the slipstream of Ragnar Wisloff, who's still in place behind now, race leader John Payne. And your first three in picture, rising up to the highest point of the racetrack at the start-finish line in the braking zone into the opening sector of the lap here. Now all of them basically covered within 1 second here. Beginning to leave Russ Addy and some of the rest of the field behind. This is clearly the three quickest drivers we have out on track right now.
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest part. Seitz has already made it clear. You open the door to the inside through the front straightaway, he's going to shove that car up the inside line, make the pass, and then make you watch as he runs away. Already Wisloff seems to be struggling in the dirty air though, and it almost looks like with the way Payne's starting to take these lines, he's almost starting to look more in the back mirror than he is through the front of the windshield.
Three-way fight at the lead of the race, approaching the halfway point, still with pit stops to go. Greg Seitz had the comfort of, being able to take that little bit of extra in the first race. Now he's in a position where he needs to kind of reconsider how he does that all over the apex there, every single inch of track being used.
Right now, Seitz knows, I think, based on the experience, it's a little bit too early for the move. Pit stop time is just about right here. Or remember, based on what we've seen last time, about 3 laps away from everybody just having pit party time. So that's going to be the biggest play here if you're Payne Wisloff is, are you saving your gas? Are you making sure you got that fuel number right? Because that's what got Payne's second step of the podium in the last race, was that fuel number. A bit of an undercut already is seen with one driver coming in a few laps early, so expect the pit wave pretty soon.
Two key rivals here. Not a great run up the hill towards Ferradura. Greg Seitz thinks, do I want to put my nose in that danger zone at this double apex climbing right-hander? No, it immediately follows into a braking zone at this little plateau where Wisloff runs a tiny bit wide. Seitz also has just a little bit of a lock-up. John Payne will be crossing his fingers for these two to really get up in each other's hair and hopefully let him get away a little bit. But he knows that Seitz has been closing the gap to him. He's hoping to leave Wisloff behind.
Here's the perfect chance though. That was not the best of runs out of the corner for Wisloff. Seitz forced to check up, and now watch him cut hard as soon as he gets the chance right here.
Second and third side by side. Ragnar Wisloff to the inside, not going to pit, going to defend the inside position all the way to the braking zone. Absolutely level now is going to force Greg Seitz to break deeper around the outside, which he does. Does he run just a little too deep? Stays to Wisloff's right-hand side through turn number 2. And almost is able to close the door through turn number 3, but there's still just a hint of front wing from Ragnar Wisloff in there that keeps them side by side here, that sends John Payne to a lead of 1.3 seconds. Wisloff still ahead with the inside to turn 4, giving Greg Seitz nothing but the long, long way around, and Seitz will take it into second.
Quickly done, quickly made in terms of that pass now for Payne. the thought has to be nail the pit stop, then get ready for a fight. Because Seitz has already made it clear he wants to prove yet again he's the quickest on track. Even with the words, if they don't come out that way, he knows that he's quick. We've seen this happen so many times where in the official series, he's one of the drivers to beat with his group for a reason.
All of this has actually brought Russ Addy a little bit closer to the podium as well. He's got a sniff of the slipstream of Ragnar Wisloff if Wisloff's now going to be off his game. Greg Seitz unleashed to the halfway point of the race now as they cross the start-finish line. No early attempts at pitting from the leaders. Realistically, it'd just put you back in traffic. Looking at a delta of around 17-18 seconds, you'd emerge sort of battling side by side with Franz Josef Stum, Eugene Clark, Gerhardus Jorrison, all stuff that would hinder, not help your cause. And you've got beautiful clean track in front of you, you just keep running in it.
A gap already done under a second right now. I think by the time Seitz is there, it's just about that pit stop delta itself. This might straight up, to be quite frank, David, come down to how much fuel you put in the tank for the first part of the battle, but even more so, how well does Seitz play it out of the pit lane. Payne already showcasing he's trying to play it careful. Seitz, he just gained 2 car lengths in one corner.
Half a second. Fastest lap of the race belongs to Greg Seitz. He wasn't able to match it last lap as he still had some other work to attend to, but this lap is going to be mighty, mighty fine. There he is using the wide line to carry maximum speed, maximum traction onto the pit straight. 3/10 behind John Payne, carrying more speed already, increasing as the draft goes on, following the wheel tracks of John Payne, who heads to pit lane. Greg Seitz back to the lead of the race from 10th on the grid.
Now in turn, this is the overcut. Greg has been, despite the push, been kind of the quick driver. Now, not a surprise to see Morgan and company come in because they've been up towards the front most of the way. Wisloff, he's obviously been backing it up, trying to keep it a little bit more conservative in terms of the tempo itself. Expect Seitz this time. Right now in turn, how much time does Seitz spend in the box could be a big difference maker with him going this extra lap. 4.3 seconds the delta for those who just came in.
Champagne emerges behind Randy Shoemake. Still your top 6 that haven't pit. Everyone else has been through the lane for give or take 4 to 5 seconds of fuel. Timing.RaceSpotTV has the figures. And a few other drivers rejoining. Eugene Clark rejoins side by side into a little battle, but Greg Seitz, he's got all of the real estate he needs to put down his speed to overcut John Payne, to leave Ragnar Wisloff and Russ Addy in his dust. Garris currently 4th after some of the other drivers from around there have pitted. Pit lane is a busy place. This is John Payne, currently best running car to have pitted. Tell you what, if he picks up a good toe off Randy Shoemake here, it still could be on. What decision does Greg Seitz make about his fuel this time around?
Well, that further lap might be the difference of a click, which might be a couple tenths of a second. And every tenth is pretty significant. There goes Seitz. How about this? 4.2, that's an extra tenth or so, and already has a sizable advantage. He's jumped him by, oh my goodness, a massive margin.
Now, a little bit more speed carried through turn 3 than the drivers on the pit exit though, so he'll close down a little bit until about here, where it reveals Greg Seitz just around 4 seconds of fuel. Very, very quick stop. Pretty good pit lane approach as well. Greg Seitz leading the race 2 seconds. John Payne still in 2nd place. Ragnar Wisloff and Russ Addy's 3rd and 4th, but how about this? Leif Hellberg, we saw his brave pass before. He's still got Randy Shoemake behind. Pierre Binet has got 11th place now under pressure from Randy Shoemake. Mike McCormick and Jack Turner, after their stops, carrying speed, having a look down the inside now of Ferradura. Mike McCormick, not Randy Shoemake on Pierre Bennett, does not take the position. Mike McCormick's the next car barreling into this battle to make it a 5-way fight.
This choo-choo train effect starting to make things a little bit jammed up. Right now, Bennett has to be keeping it pretty clear. Get ready for the dive. Get ready for someone to try and make the move. Be comfortable on the pass. And it's not just as simple, I think, from Bennett as saying, okay, I'll let one car go. The second he lets the first one in line go, he's going to, in turn, have to let everyone go, all four. And that's how you go backwards, backwards, backwards. I know there's the thought of race your race, but he's got to be able to fight because it's about 5 to go on the season.
Having been passed around the outside, Randy Shoemake's trying to return the favour at turn 1. Is he clear enough to sweep across in turn 3? He's not. They're still side by side, boxing in. Mike McCormick, Jack Turner, Douglas Beasley will see all of this happening and he'll get a chance to close in. Bennett doing a great job to defend that position. McCormick is going to have Randy Shoemake here, and all of them investigate the green.
Well done in terms of the first layer of defense. Mike McCormick, as to be expected though, able to quickly take advantage because if you can't make that pass, it puts you up for grabs for everyone else in line. The next car. It gets right back to that same defensive movement I just talked about, David. It's the same kind of thought for the driver on the offensive. You don't make the pass, you pay.
Greg Seitz' lead starting to evaporate. He had the shortest pit stop of anyone. Has there been a miscalculation, or is he playing some games side by side with Payne? John Payne goes round the outside, has his nose in front, back to the race lead. We're back in the house of Payne.
I am so confused because he lost 2 seconds out of the blue, and all of a sudden the fight's on. I think he made a mistake somewhere if he lost 2 seconds just like that, David. And Seitz already knows. He knows he's quicker. The thing is for Payne, he knows this is his one shot if he made a mistake like that, apparently.
It's all on as Ragnar Wisloff gets into the fight. Now back into 3rd place for John Payne. Greg Seitz back to the lead of the race.
Yeah, looking at the last time, 2 seconds lost. The delta was 2 seconds, quite simply. I think he botched something in the final sector if he lost that much time. Now, if you're Payne, Wisloff, anybody, you have to go. I know it sounds simple, but if you have anything, pressurize the mistake again. This has been the worst sector for Seitz in this race for some reason. The first round he was perfect. The second race of the day here, he's just struggling in the final sector.
Odd little lines here from Greg Seitz, taking them away from the racing line as they're forced to follow in the slipstream. Ragnar Wisloff gets that speed advantage to try to challenge back for the race lead. It's no longer the House of Payne because the lead will jump around. Here's Russ Addy for 4th, smelling a podium. John Morgan, Garris, Jorison, they're also not too far behind. They've stayed within vision range of the race lead. Driving down the middle of the straight, Greg Seitz has a beautiful little train of ducklings.
Yeah, those ducklings, though, I think are about to turn into carnivorous ducks. Is that a thing? Carnivorous ducks? Carnivore
No,
ducks?
but it's fun to think about.
Attack of the Wild Ducklings. Wisloff is in that drafting distance, and this is a car we've seen be very aerodynamic down the pull of the straights. Another mistake again for Seitz. He just keeps having a problem here.
Went out wide in the left-hander at the bottom of the hill. Aggressive dive, John Payne. That car almost completely rotates on the curb. He's now going to have to go around the outside and avoid contact with Ragnar Wisloff. Russ Addy doesn't know what to make of this. One of them's got to get a good drive out of the final corner, but they will not as they try to go side by side there. Now Russ Addy closes, John Morgan closes, 2.6 seconds from the lead of the race to John Morgan in 5th. They are going to see out this season with some fireworks.
Yeah, that bit of fireworks, I think, hurt a little bit. According to Google, ducks are omnivores. But, again, it gets the thought of, what if a duck was carnivorous instead? And you have to be hungry to be able to chomp down at the bit of that gap if you want to find your way into position to zip on by. That being said, if you're fighting more so for second than the lead, that's going to kill your absolute chances here. Seitz is just continuously running wide.
I can definitely see a duck eating some worms, and the early bird gets the worm, but the first driver to the finish line gets the checkered flag and the victory, and that's what we're just laps away from here. John Morgan, look at him. He can see a four-way fight for the lead. He's joining it. What a great little finale. We're going to get Greg Seitz, John Payne, Ragnar Wisloff, Russ Addy here. Payne makes the dive to the inside. I admire your belief in competitive integrity, Justin Prince, but I think Greg Seitz is playing with his food right now. Oh, a wiggle from John Payne. Poor traction there. That is actually a genuine mistake and is going to bring us all closer once again.
100% see Seitz trying to absolutely try and have some fun to close out the run. Give some of these drivers a chance to be able to fight, but even better, see what they can do in attack mode. He's already making clearance straightaways like this on the outside. I can make a pass if I want to, but I want you guys to have a lot of fun, and that's not a fun run for Payne.
John Payne gets way too much curb there. Bottoms out this car. It rides so low. Greg Seitz had to avoid. Now Ragnar Wisloff's around his outside. Russ Addy's got speed and nowhere to go with it. John Payne's back in the fight. John Morgan's joining the fight. There's 1.5 laps to go. And your heavy hitters are 60-plus racing adventures. They'll make a show. They'll make a circus. They'll set off the fireworks. Greg Seitz will try to win by the smallest margin possible, but he does have some real quality drivers back here with Wisloff, Addy, John Payne. Wisloff and Addy, both previous champions through the illustrious history of this league. John Morgan, I think a couple seasons in advance, they start etching his name under Super 70s.
I think it's going to be one of the more wilder final laps you'll see for the season here if Seitz continues the way he's been shaping this up. Again, the thing is though, Seitz seems to be almost back to the point where, okay, maybe it's time to run. Or he can go wide again and lift off the throttle. What is he doing?
I think he's feathering the throttle a little bit, but definitely a line to try to break the slipstream, not a foolish one. John Payne wants on the podium that Russ Addy's currently got, so down the inside here he goes. A little bit of a lock-up from Addy makes it easy for John Payne to come through into third, and doesn't make the same mistake again, getting too much of that exit curb, bottoming out these low-running single-seaters. Addy, he's good on the traction though, and if they fight third and fourth, it'll let Ragnar Wisloff have second. Greg Seitz has started this final lap of the season in the lead, and he looks like he intends to continue there.
Yeah, I think Seitz just said, you know what, enough's enough. I've had playtime. It's time to close out with race win time. Addy's saying, you know what, I've had race time. Now it's playtime.
John Morgan still there in 5th, but hasn't quite been able to join this fight. Where it's most close is John Payne and Russ Addy. Payne forced to defend a Bico de Pato, and that puts you on a shallower, more compromised line. Traction is a challenge at this point of the race, and you see the rear tyres sort of light up a little bit for all drivers involved. So a big wider line like Greg Seitz likes to take here helps you open the throttle and the power. Very direct power delivery from a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder in an F3 car, even if the peak power isn't all there. Drag race for third will be firmly in the mirrors of Greg Seitz as he clean sweeps Interlagos. Wisloff second, and the margin for third place, thousandths of a second, 12 of them to be precise.
Well done in terms of the top three. They did have some exciting racing. but an exciting close to the season. Another strong drive for Seitz, as he now can basically say it's trophy time.
It happens from time to time that the position changes between the final corner and the checkered flag. Close for Douglas Beasley. So he hangs on narrowly from Franz Josef Sturm and Eugene Clark. The last cars on the lead lap. David Bradley and Pierre Binet. They're behind Earl Setzer and Richard Varley, crossing the line right now. Butler, I can't tell if he's still out there. I think he got put one lap down. Pierre Binet has been through the pit lane twice, presumably picking up some damage at some point. But we'll see out the final race of the season.
I think Binet might have had a lot of defense before, but an exciting defense for Seitz to close out the race for another sweep.
Slimmer margins in race 2 of 60 plus racing adventures, as Greg Seitz started 10th on the grid to take the victory, 1.3 seconds clear of Ragnar Wisloff and John Payne. Scoped the margin 3rd to 4th, very, very close. What an exciting race those two had. John Morgan, Gerhardus Jorrison, Greg Garris, Mike Grandy, Barry Hills, Leif Hellberg as our top 10. Great fights all through the field elsewhere as well, with Mike McCormick in 11th, and then Jack Turner, Richard Coulomb, Douglas Beasley, Franz Josef Sturm, Eugene Clark. Very close competitors with Peter Holstrom on their tail as well. Jerry Kerr, JC Hay, Earl Setzer seeing a clean record to the end of the season. Richard Varley, David Bradley, Pierre Binet, last drivers on the lead lap. Frank Butler, one lap down. Randy Shoemake and Bruce Poole, retirements in the end. And it's the same cast of characters at the end of race number 2 as it was at the end of race number 1. Justin Prince, cast your eyes up towards the lobby. Who are you going to have a quick chat with?
Well, we've talked with Greg. We've talked with John. You know who we haven't talked to? Ragnar. You know what? Let's do Ragnar first. And Ragnar Wisloff is having some fun moments here. Ragnar, good lap for you. A good podium. Once again, a good recovery from the first race. Your thoughts, Mr. Captain?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it wasn't all that much of a good show in the first race, so it's a good thing that managed to keep it on track in this last race, the last race of the season. So I guess it finishes pretty much as it has been all season long. Greg first, and the rest of us a little after.
I have to ask you the honest question here. What was going through your mind when you were seeing Greg Seitz charge ahead? He was up by 2 seconds after pit stops. Then all of a sudden, it's like, poof, no more 2-second lead. And then, poof, no longer the leader. Then back to the lead, then back to the lead, and not to the lead. And what was kind of the thoughts?
Well, this is what we were laughing about in the slowdown room. I was wondering, I mean, is there something wrong with his connection? He was weaving right and left and up and down, and I was wondering, well, is something going on here? But I think he was just playing around. He's got so much pace, he's got so much in reserve. He can just afford to play around a little bit, and then when he decides to, he just takes off into the distance. That's the way things are.
Now, to finish things up on a more serious note, of course, one of the big things is what's on your car for today. And one of the big things some of the drivers have discussed, John Morgan in particular, was the passing of one of your fellow race administrators. Mark is on. You put his name on the race car today. And
Yes.
Thank you, Mark. What did he mean to you in terms of the connection to the series, and in turn, your experiences with him as one of the league administrators?
It's sometimes for us drivers who just show up and expect everything to be right on the dot. The sessions are set up, the setup is in there, the right number of laps are in there, they start at the right time, all of the practice sessions, all of this goes on in the background, and Mark did quite a bit of that. And there is a bit of well, a financial side to this as well. It's not very big, but you still have to keep it ticking over. And Mark looked after that as well. I think maybe he spoke a little bit to RaceSpot and made sure that everything was going right and that you knew when to come and what to do. So it is a little strange in a way. It's a very close-knit community in one way. On the other hand, very few of us have met each other. I've met Peter Hallström, who is Swedish. We met at a Porsche event in Norway last year, but he's the only one that I've met in person. But we feel that we know each other, and we do different things for the league. Some of us drive, some of us organize. And Mark was definitely one of the good organizers. You could always depend on everything being right when he was in charge. So that's why I put thank you, Mark, because he does a lot to make sure that the rest of us have fun.
On that note, Ragnar, well said. And thank you very much once again for the time.
Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you for a good production as always, and hope to see you sometime next season.
Good weather and smooth sailing, Ragnar.
Thanks, David. Thank you.
Ragnar Wisloff, strong run here to close out the season, David.
Yes, indeed. Now, if I recall last time you spoke with John Payne, I spoke with Greg Seitz, so I reckon we, what was the TV show, Wife Swap, and try that. I will grab John Payne. No. John Payne will be interrupted to join us. And thank you so much for your time once again. I'm sure if you're wearing a heart rate monitor, it was probably a little higher on average in race 2 than race 1.
Yeah, I've got my iWatch on. I have to go check it out. That was nerve-wracking, to say the least. Greg said he just got bored, so he just decided to spice it all up.
A little insulting to his competitors, to be honest, but hey,
that's what I told him. Yeah, it is
it's entertaining for all involved, even if the disrespect is writ large. I wonder if amongst this replay here, as we just have a look at your car as we chat, if we're going to see that little moment you had. These cars bottom out so easily on the curbs. Yeah,
it did, and that it happened exactly when I didn't need it to, but that's the way those things go. But I was telling Greg that, after the pit stop, Ragnar caught me some after that, and I was just trying to cut laps, and of course Greg slowed down to play, and next thing you know, everybody's caught up, and it was Katie bar the door.
Yeah, all in brawl to see out the season. Give us some very, very exciting racing, and yeah, Ragnar gets you, but you hold off Ross Addy for another podium.
Yeah, I was glad to do that. Everybody raced clean, and I just didn't want to take anybody out. And so I think we'll just have to call it a success all the way around because of that.
And this Dallara F3 car, it's had its sort of ebbs and flows on the iRacing service. It's a new addition to 60-plus racing adventures. Seems to be a car that drivers enjoy driving.
Yeah, it's quick enough for me. I'm anxious to see what the new car they have coming out, and I'm anxious to see what cars get rain, because that would certainly add a whole new dimension to things. So we'll just have to see. I haven't heard any chatter of any change of cars, but yeah, the F3 it's a handful.
Yeah, certainly seems like it. Your competitors are a handful. Congratulations on your season, some of your strong results, and hopefully we see you go well future seasons of 60-plus racing adventures.
Thank you, guys.
And Justin, there's one last person for us to speak to. You can tie a neat little bow on it right now. Greg Seitz, season champion.
Yeah, hi guys.
Hello once again, and going to ask you straightforward the big buzzing question when it came to the conversation with the drivers, the battle for the front. You had Ragnar, who found it very funny, because he was laughing apparently with you as he was coming to the interview. You also have John Payne, who said, oh, it's somewhat insulting to the battle in terms of the point of the food. Tell us the truth. What happened in terms of the battle for the race lead?
Oh, I wanted to have fun. So I didn't want to just disappear into the distance, and I think I had really good pace here, so I wanted to mix it up with those guys.
I mean, made it interesting, I'll say that much. But in terms of that, how difficult was it to be like, you know what? I came out 2 seconds quicker out of the pit lane, gained 3 seconds total in the pit lane. I'm just going to give up the time and make it fun.
Yeah, I think that was kind of my plan. I thought I was surprised that I actually had that much of a gap after I came in behind John, because he's usually really good at pit stops, and so I was like a little bit surprised that I actually came out ahead of him. And I did a lap or two, at pace, and then I'm like, yeah, let's play.
Well, on that note then, as playtime's now over, what's the approach to go full on attack mode, so to speak, for the next season?
It's hard to say. I'll still probably do this car, assuming we're still doing this car. I might expand my horizons a little bit into the GT3 car. I'm not a very good driver in that car, so I think that'll kind of help push myself. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I don't think I will have that advantage that I have in the open wheelers.
Well, on that note, Greg, one more thing. Congratulations on the championship. Anyone you want to thank for being a part of your championship campaign this year?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody who kind of puts on the league. Condolences to Mark and his family, unfortunately. My teammate Mike, I don't know where we ended up in the championship, but I think we were up there, so he did a great job this season. And then my partner Kate, to force her to watch my last race.
Well, glad your partner was able to watch along as you swept, I should rather say, the entire race round. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks, guys, and thanks for putting on the broadcast.
Greg Seitz, your champion, and another sweep.
Fantastic performance all season long, everywhere we saw him from Greg Seitz. It's going to take everyone else lifting their game or a new driver to turn 60 to stop him. For everyone else, they really enjoy their racing. We heard from Ragnar Wisloff how much the community means to everyone, and that's what keeps 60 plus racing adventures going, and why they all will so dearly miss Mark Lasson. Thank you for joining us on RaceSpotTV as we brought you coverage of both races of 60 plus racing adventures deciding the season. 60 plus racing adventures will go on. Find them on the iRacing forum. If you're 60 or approaching 60, it's the league for you. What great community and racing they have. I've been David Haynes with Justin Prince, producer Iku Medicala, bringing you all the pictures and the replays. We might see you in a couple of weeks' time for the next season. Stay tuned.